So you're thinking about moving to the DeWitt area and you're wondering, hey, what are some of the pros and cons of living in DeWitt? And if you've been following my channel, you've been seeing I have several pros and cons of different cities. Well, in this episode, we are going to address the pros and cons of living in DeWitt. And if you stay tuned until the end, the last one is going to be important for you to see because it talks to you about the cost of living, cost of taxes, things of that nature. So without further ado, let's get started with this episode in 3, 2, 1, now. Hey everybody, Troy Seifert here with the Capital Area Real Estate Specialist in the Greater Lansing, Michigan area. And my team, we get phone calls all the time from people who are just like you, watching this channel, relocating to the area. We get phone calls from people who are looking to buy in 9 days, 90 days, even a year or two from now. We are here to help. So if you are looking to buy or sell in the Greater Lansing area, please call, text, email me, schedule a Zoom with me as well. I just had a Zoom with someone the other day who was watching this channel, and the person had said, wow, this is like incredibly helpful to me. So I'm more than willing to be able to meet with you and just to be able to discuss your real estate goals. And also don't forget, if you want to be informed of everything about Lansing, Michigan life, please like, subscribe, ring the bell for any notifications. Even if you have any comments on anything and you have any questions, I would greatly appreciate to be able to interact with you that way. I'm pretty responsive as well. So we are getting ready to start with DeWitt, and if you're somebody that pays attention to what people are wearing, you're noticing, why is he wearing Philadelphia Eagles stuff when he's talking about DeWitt? Well, if you looked in my earlier videos about DeWitt, I have a vlog tour of DeWitt where I'm walking around the downtown and some neighborhoods. I also have a map tour just kind of explaining the scope of the land of DeWitt. And DeWitt is where I live. And when I compare where I live now to where I lived growing up, and I've kind of hinted at this in some earlier videos, I lived in a very rural area in eastern Pennsylvania. I'm so grateful for my upbringing, and I see my family, extended family, year after year. And then we moved to Indiana when I was in 9th grade. And thinking through where I lived in eastern Pennsylvania, it was a very small town, very rural. And when I moved over to the Lansing, Michigan area, I was able to just be exposed to more things. And I feel like even with my worldview that I have now, it's been helpful for me because I felt like I lived in a bubble. And so I'm wearing Philadelphia Eagles stuff because I still root for them in football. It's still a part of who I am, as far as like, I'm not gonna abandon where I grew up, but I am appreciative of where I live right now. I love living in DeWitt, Michigan. So when I share these pros and cons, I'm going to try and be as impartial as I can be, because I don't want it to come across like, yeah, this place is great, and then you come here and there's maybe some things you hadn't realized and you're only hearing it from me. Like, I'm gonna be sharing some really honest things with you about the DeWitt area. Some of them you're gonna like, some of them you're gonna go, hey, do I really wanna live in DeWitt? And that's okay, because we all have our different areas that we want to live at, our likes and dislikes and preferences, and that's totally fine. So before I get into the pros and cons, I want to let you know a little bit about DeWitt. So if you research about DeWitt, it's kind of funny, like there's different sites that show different things about the population. So if you look, hey, what's the population of DeWitt? One place will tell you 5,000 people. And then you'll see, hey, there's this place called DeWitt Township that has 15,000 people. So how many people really live in DeWitt? Well, there's not really I can kind of tell you like an estimation for like where people live in DeWitt schools, just because of like the DeWitt school area, there's roughly about 3,000 students that are in there. So if there's 3,000 students, there's roughly about, I would say 18 to 20,000 people that live in DeWitt. They live in DeWitt Township, they live in DeWitt City. DeWitt City is its own township within DeWitt, and so that's why they say there's 5,000 people that live there, but DeWitt Township is much broader, much bigger, and you'll see 15,000 for that, but some people that live in that area that has 15,000 people also have a Lansing address, also have Lansing schools, but they're still in DeWitt Township. So it's skewed because we really don't know how many people truly call DeWitt their home, do everything in DeWitt. DeWitt only became a city in the 60s. It was a village before. So that's why when you see my neighborhood tours, you see a lot of homes that were built in the late 70s, 80s, 90s. That's because the city really wasn't that evolved and it continued to expand. There was a lot of farmland everywhere. And so the village ended up being where the downtown is. And so you see some older homes in the downtown area because it was just a village. Then DeWitt continued to expand, and you saw a huge expansion in like the 80s, the 90s, and lots of people were moving to DeWitt, Michigan area. So another thing I want you to know, another fun fact about DeWitt is that in 2005, this is when I first moved to the area, because I moved to DeWitt it was close to when I moved to the area. I moved to Lansing, Michigan in 2007. So in 2005, US News and World Report, which is a renowned magazine, and people read magazines more back in 2005, right? So it was a little bit of a bigger deal. But they came out with the top, I think it was 75 to 100 places to live in the United States. And would you know, DeWitt was number 75 in the nation of a place to be able to, like, top 75 places to live. And it's because of raising your family there, economic status, and growth. There was a bunch of growth that was happening during that time in DeWitt, Michigan. DeWitt has a lot of popularity just because of having that smaller town feel. I want to get into, because I have a lot to cover here with the pros and cons. I want to kind of get into the pros, start with the pros of living in DeWitt. The first thing I'll say about it, the first pro of living in DeWitt, Michigan is its proximity to the interstates. Why is that important to you? Well, if you're looking to work in the Lansing area and you move to DeWitt, having that interstate access is huge, because the interstate that's right there, DeWitt, is I-69. I-69 does connect to I-96 going west to Grand Rapids. It does connect to Interstate 127 going south. It's one of the interstates in the area, but you can travel 70 to 75 miles an hour on these stretches of roads as long as there's no construction backing you up. But having that access makes your commute that much shorter. And if you've looked at my other videos, Lansing area, as far as traffic goes, usually it's not that bad unless you run into a construction project. The thing that's really cool about DeWitt, and I mentioned this in my map video too, is that DeWitt is a smaller city, yes, but the interstate has 3 separate exits. That's important because you can live at 3 different locales in DeWitt, one that's further west, go a little further east, and you will have access to the interstate. I feel like that's huge as well. You'll have an interstate usually within minutes of where you're going to live, maybe even less. So having 3 interstate exits in a super small town, like, that is rare. I think that that's extremely rare. You might have 3 to 5 exits at a major city, but not in the size city of DeWitt. So to have 3 major interstate accesses, like, I think that that's huge. The second thing and it's a pro for sure, it's not as strong as a pro as others, but are the schools. So I would rank DeWitt in the top 5 school districts in the greater Lansing area according to niche.com. I guess I shouldn't say I would rank them. Niche.com has ranked them. That's important. I'm not giving my opinion on a school district, not trying to steer you one way or another, but niche.com has them at an A- grade. You have Okemos schools at A+, you have Hazlitt schools, I believe, at A or A+, you have East Lansing schools at an A, you have Williamston schools. Those are your top 4 school districts, and I'll get into those school districts in another video. There's lots to cover in our area, okay? DeWitt's in the top 5. And it's an A-, yes, and there's a minus. People might think that's a little bit more negative, but it's still a good quality school district. And earlier in the video, I think I said DeWitt has over 3,000 students. Within the DeWitt School District, there are 3 elementary schools, a kindergarten 1st grade building, a 2nd and 3rd grade building, and a 4th and 5th grade building. Then there's a middle school, and then there's the high school. Each class roughly has about 200 to 250 students in it. So that's the size school it has. The schools in the last few years have had amazing football teams. Like this year, our football team is basically killing every single person. And I don't mean that, but like they are dominating every single game out there for football right now. And every school, like throughout the school districts, have their sport that they really emphasize on. Football's a big deal at DeWitt. I've been to a couple home football games within the area. Lots of people love going to the home football games in DeWitt. And especially helps when your team is doing really good, right? The third pro for living in DeWitt is the opportunity for growth. I think I've given this as a pro to other suburbs in Lansing, and I just feel like it's an important pro to have, because when you're looking to move to the area, let's say you're looking to relocate, you don't know how long you're gonna be here. Having that opportunity for growth where there's a place that people are moving to, where homes are being built, where the population is increasing, that can be a huge factor. With that, like with the last census, I believe in 2020, DeWitt grew about 3 to 4% population, but at the 2010 census, they went down in population, but I feel a lot of that is attributed to the economy. A lot of people were bolting from Michigan because of just the recession. And so a lot of people left. Now I feel like our economy is rebuilt. It's very strong within the area. So we see the population going up. So the opportunity for growth is huge, especially if you're looking for resale and you think, hey, within 3 to 5 years, I might want to sell. You'll probably have a decent appreciation and equity in your home. I think that that's a good thing. Number 4 is the downtown. Now, I will be the first to admit, the downtown, and I'm gonna do a future video on the top downtowns, because we have a lot of downtowns in the greater Lansing area. It is not the best downtown, but again, as I said in my video before when I did the vlog in the downtown, the DeWitt downtown is small, but mighty. And I think it's a good indication of how successful it is when they are starting to build high rises. They tore down an area in DeWitt downtown, they put up a new building, and they put more floors above it, above the building. So it's commercial use and some residential use. And I think that says a lot about the area. And in our area, we have a bakery known as Sweetylicious. The lady that owns it won Best of Show on Food Network for her pie. And so that has really put her on the map in the area. They are expensive pies, but they are good, and everyone says they are worth it. But that's more of a, and then they have another bakery that does more breads, within downtown. We have a place called Scoopy Doo's, and it's based on Scooby-Doo, but for copyright reasons, call it Scoopy Doo's. And that's a very popular place that they make homemade waffle cones, like right there on the spot. I love the waffle cones there. And they also have some cool restaurants within there. Bridge Street Social is one I'd mentioned before, a little bit more high-end, a more intimate setting restaurant. And then Family Tree Cafe is within there. They have a bunch of businesses that also are thriving within the downtown area. They have a general store within there. They have a brewery that was converted from a church into a brewery. I mean, and people go to these spots. These places aren't shutting down. They are very popular. So I say that because I'm listing off all these things, and I feel like that's decent for a small downtown, that they have all of these, just all this variety. Plus in the downtown, 2 things. They have a farmer's market every Tuesday in the spring and summer months, which is great to have. They shut down the main street in downtown and they barricade it off, and they have all these vendors that come with produce. I saw a guy with mini cheesecakes over there selling those, and I've had them before. They are amazing. He comes from the Detroit area. So they have different vendors throughout. And then also the downtown transforms in the second, usually it's the second weekend in August, it transforms into the Ox Roast Festival. And they've been doing this festival for years. They will have live bands, they will have carnival rides, they will have food trucks, vendors. Thousands of people come to DeWitt for the Ox Roast, and it's a small area, like this compact area. So if you don't like crowds, this is not the place for you to go to, because it can be a little busy, especially on a weekend night. But downtown in DeWitt, even though it's small, it is thriving there. And there are better downtowns in the area, but I will say the downtown is a huge pro. Number 5, we have a very active community in DeWitt. And what I mean by that is everywhere you look throughout DeWitt, and it could be a township thing as well, but I notice it in the city too, there are sidewalks everywhere on every street. Sidewalks where people are walking throughout the day, especially when the weather is nice. But I see people jogging even in the winter with their sweatshirts on, and I see that happen as well. So it's not like it slows down necessarily during the winter time, but there are sidewalks in every neighborhood. But it's even like there was a huge project that was done, and again, it was construction, so it was no fun. There were detours happening everywhere. But the end product was they made a bike lane on one of their roads on DeWitt Road so that bikers could go. And then they made a sidewalk that actually, like where the interstate exits were, they made it so that the sidewalk continued onto like the interstate exits so that you were not interrupted, went straight through. And then they created a storybook walkway that the library, DeWitt Library, sponsored, that changes from time to time with a new story that you can read as you walk. And it spans for miles. There's a number of neighborhoods that have trails within them. I mean, I will say DeWitt is a very active community, and I think it's a good thing. You know, people are willing to, you know, they want to exercise, they want to stay healthy, they want to stay fit. So another good thing. Number 6 is that it has a small town feel. And for some people, they love that. They love being able to have that small town feel where it might not be as crazy as far as traffic and all these crowds of people, and that you can have mostly everything close to you that you need, and you don't, you know, it's not gonna be like a chore to have to go out and feel like you're gonna be stopped by all these traffic lights and stopped cars everywhere. The small town feel can also make you feel like you get to know people maybe a little bit better. Small towns can be, it depends, can be a little bit more welcoming. I feel like DeWitt is a very welcoming town as well. So that's my last pro right there, is the small town feel. Now I'm gonna get into the cons, and I'm gonna use the small town feel as a transition into the cons, because small town feel can be a good thing, but small town feel can be a bad thing depending on your personality and who you are. So the small town feel, why I'm saying that's a con. So if you kind of want to be in a place where people don't know about you kind of want to hide a little bit. And I'm not saying hide like in a bad way, but you're more of a private person. DeWitt might not be the place for you, because people know each other, you know, and then if in a small town, it's just, I'm not saying this is how DeWitt is, this is how a lot of small towns are. This is just something you need to be aware of. When you move to a small town, more people know each other. The people, like it can turn a little political, maybe a little bit, where, you know, there's people that have been living in the town for years and people know them, and you're gonna run into that in every small town. So I'm not trying to slam DeWitt in that sense, because I feel like every small town is like this, but it's something for you to be aware of if you're looking into a small town like DeWitt, that can be something that could feel like a con, because maybe you wanna live in a bigger area because you might have more options for people that you could interact with. You're not gonna have as many options in a small town. So I'm gonna start that one off with a con, and that could be debatable. If you don't agree with that, comment below, we can interact with that. Number 2 con is the lack of diversity in DeWitt. And if you've seen some of my pro-con videos with East Lansing, Okemos, I think, you know, I stated that there was about 75% of the town was white, and then, you know, 25 to 30% was a different race. So in DeWitt, it's 85% white. Some people would say 90%. You know, so it's between 85 to 90% depending on what data you find. And I would say I would venture closer a little bit to 90%, but this is what I'll tell you. When they've done the census every 10 years, the diversity has actually increased within DeWitt, which I think is a good sign. And there are lots of new home builds within the area, which I think is a good sign too, because people who are looking to relocate might want to look at a new home build because they want something brand new. I find that people who are especially coming from another country, they want to have something that's brand new. They don't want to have something that's old. And I've noticed that the diversity has increased. I think that that's a good thing. I think 10 years from now, I think this figure will improve. I really do. But there still is room for improvement in the city of DeWitt. So that would be a number 2 con. Number 3 is that you're further away from entertainment and shopping. And if you saw my map tour, DeWitt has one main drag. They do have the downtown, but that's more localized. Like, they don't really have chain restaurants in the downtown. If you go the main stretch where, you know, there's an interstate exit, and probably a lot of people will visit there if they're traveling on the interstate throughout Michigan. There's a McDonald's, there's an Arby's, there's every fast food place, there's a Meijer, and Meijer is like a Walmart. So you have your grocery store, you have all that stuff there. You have a couple restaurants like Bob Evans, and then there's a place called Flapjack that is going to be reopening soon. and that's another breakfast place. There's a lack of those things. Now, the thing that's good about DeWitt right now, and I should have said this for the opportunity for growth, that in DeWitt, within the last 10 years, just giving you some perspective, within the last 10 years, DeWitt has gotten a Taco Bell, they've gotten a Walgreens, they have gotten a Culver's, and they've gotten a Starbucks. So Starbucks is the most recent thing. So they continue to grow. There's an area that's just north of us, St. John's. They've kind of stayed the same over the years in St. John's. They had more things than DeWitt, and now as time has gone on, the growth hasn't really happened. DeWitt, I find it a good thing that they slowly bring things in. Now, there was a time, this is a small little story, but there was a time where DeWitt had an outlet center. It's known as Clark Corners, and it's right off one of the exits there on Old 27. And if you travel to DeWitt, you'll notice this just huge strip mall that's abandoned. Like, there's nothing there. That's Clark Corners. It used to be an outlet center, and they must have thought to themselves in development, hey, DeWitt's right by an interstate, there's opportunity for growth. I think by that time, DeWitt had grown by 10%. They're like, hey, this place is thriving, let's let something happen. And then there wasn't enough people to be able to help support it. And so as time went on, the outlets, it crumbled. And so it's sat there, especially since I've moved here, a lot of shops have just sat there, like nothing has gone in there. There is opportunity for some more growth there, but if you wanna get to anything in, like as far as the shopping and the entertainment within the Lansing area, you've got to travel to Lansing. That's probably going to be about a 10-minute drive to Eastwood Town Center. That's going to be the closest place. And it's going to be about a 10 to 15-minute drive to Delta Township, Michigan, which is on the west side of town. So just some food for thought for you. If you really are about having all the entertainment and shopping all in one place, you're going to have to travel a little bit for it. And then the last thing I'm going to say, and I think I said I was going to bring this up, is the cost of housing in DeWitt. Right now, DeWitt is in the top 3 as far as being the most expensive to live. For 2024, the average cost of a house was around $395,000 for the year. So the only 2 areas that were slightly, and I mean slightly above them, were Hazlet and Okemos. I haven't really done necessarily, I do want to share here, I haven't necessarily done a video on Hazlet yet because I think Hazlet, Okemos kind of go hand in hand, and I would be doing a repeat video. Hazlet really only has a lake, but they have the access that Okemos does to, they just have the same things that the access to things that Okemos has, the same things. So, but Hazlet, Okemos, they have the higher cost of living there, but then DeWitt came in at number 3 and only within a few thousand. But if you've watched my previous videos of Okemos, the taxes there are extremely high. You're gonna look at the figures and you're gonna see, okay, DeWitt is just as expensive as Okemos and Hazlet. It seems like Okemos and Hazlet have a little bit more stuff there. And they do, they have a mall, they have other things, some restaurants within there, and it's closer to MSU. But the thing with DeWitt is the millage, the tax millage for property taxes is way less. In Okemos, if you bought a $400,000 house and the assessor just looked at the taxable value, what they would find is that you would pay close to $12,000 in taxes for the year for a $400,000 house. In DeWitt, that cost would be $8,000 for taxes for the year, a lot less. And that would be on average. There's 3 different taxing townships within DeWitt, so it depends on where you live. That can vary, but it's considerably less in DeWitt. So yes, the cost of housing is higher, the price is higher, but what you're gonna be paying in taxes, that's gonna be a different story. So there is still a savings that's there, but it is within the top 3 of the average cost of housing. So an important point for you to know as you're evaluating where do I wanna live in Greater Lansing, where is it? That's what you have to know about DeWitt. And I make it a con because it is one of the more expensive places within the Greater Lansing area to live when you're looking to purchase a home. So hopefully all of this stuff was beneficial to you. And again, I love doing the pros and cons videos. So I will continue with those for the different suburbs. So stay tuned to those. Please like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications so that you can be notified when a new episode of Lansing, Michigan Life comes, and also just encouraging you to also call, text, email, schedule a Zoom call with me. I would love to be able to talk with you just about maybe some of these concepts, or in any of the other videos. I would love to be able to interact with you and answer any of your questions that you might have. So that's it for another episode of Lansing, Michigan Life. And stay tuned, for future weeks, because we are bringing content out roughly about 2 times a week. So until then, make it a great day.